What is up, guys? This is the ZeusTuber, and today I'm here with my review of The Walking Dead Season 5, Episode 2, titled Strangers. Now, I loved this episode so much. It was definitely not as action-heavy and fast-paced as the premiere episode, but that is okay. I personally thought this episode was extremely well-written, well-acted, well-directed, well-cinematically, well shot, and although it was slower, I still thought it was well-paced in the sense that there wasn't, at least in my opinion, a whole lot of filler. Everything that was going on made sense, and it would make sense in the long run. You know, right? Their next mission, they want to go, they're looking for food and supplies. Alright, that's understandable. They just escaped Terminus. They're low on ammo. They meet Father Gabriel. He brings them to the church. And from there, I mean, obviously they could spend a few days there and have filler, but they decided, alright, we have to go on a supply run. Let's go get some supplies. Let's, further introduce Father Gabriel. We have to flesh him out a little more so we understand his story. We have to make sure that the group has a new mission going to DC, and by the end of the episode, we know that that is their new mission. But it's probably going to get pushed back a little bit based on the events of next week's episode titled Four Walls and a Roof. The promo for that looks amazing, and I am so stoked for Sunday night. This season so far has just been phenomenal. It's probably been so far the strongest start to a season we've seen since Season 1, really. And speaking of Season 1, this episode, Strangers, it felt to me a lot like Season 1 in the terms that it was a big ensemble cast. There's a lot of characters there, a lot of alpha males, because, in Season 1 we had Rick, Shane. Daryl was even kind of an alpha male for some of it, although he wasn't as, up front as like a main character as he is now. He was still an alpha male. He was definitely had that, he brought some tension to the table amongst the lead guys there. And now we got, like, Tyrese is acting more like a mother than anything, so I'm not really going to say Tyrese is too much of an alpha male at this point. He had a chance to shine in the premiere episode, but now that we know that Martin is alive, then he didn't really earn his macho moment, although he did tear those walkers apart with his bare hands, which is cool. Doesn't really do much for me in my eyes. So really we just got like Rick, Daryl, and Abraham, and they're probably going to butt heads at some point. They're planting little seeds for us. As of now, things are calm, and Rick hasn't had a real big confrontation with Abraham, or vice versa, and they're kind of going along with whatever each other's doing. But you can tell that at some point they're going to clash heads. I think it'll be next week's episode, because based on the Comic-Con trailer, we know that they get into a little bit of an argument about DC, and things of that nature. So that'll probably happen. They probably won't come to blows, like, fist punching and stuff like that. But it'll definitely be a pretty heated argument. In terms of this episode, and like I mentioned before, it was slower, and none of us will probably doubt that. It was a slower episode, but the character development and the dialogue, in my opinion, was interesting. There was a lot of characters who hadn't spoken to each other before, so it was cool to see that. It was cool to see Tara's interactions with Rick. I liked how she gave him the fist bump at the end. He was just like, fist bump. I thought that was a cool scene there. I liked Rick and Carol's dialogue, Daryl and Carol. Carol was a very pivotal character in this episode, just like last episode. This is probably going to be Carol and Rick's season, more so Carol as of now. Carol's just been shining through, and we know that her story is going to continue in even bigger ways in the coming up episodes, especially with her travels with Daryl to go get Beth. I'm betting we won't see Daryl or Carol in tomorrow or next Sunday's episode at all. We won't see them probably until, I wonder if we won't see them until episode 6, to be honest with you, because we know episode 3 is the group once and for all dealing with Gareth and the Termites, finding Bob, and the whole tainted meat scene. We know that's basically going to be episode 3, from what we've gathered. Episode 4 is going to be Beth's episode. I really think it's going to be a Beth-only episode, just to catch up with her where she's been. At the very end of the episode, we might see a glimmer of maybe one of our other group cast members, but I doubt it. Probably Beth-only. Episode 5 is the fire truck episode, which is after the group leaves the church, because they're on the church bus. That's when the church bus crashes, and they're kind of on foot again, and a lot of cool stuff's going to happen with that. Episode 6 is when the van goes over, which is in Atlanta, which we know is with Daryl and Carol. Episode 6 is the Daryl/Carol Atlanta episode. Episode 7 is the group, Daryl, Carol, maybe a few others it's Daryl, Carol finding Beth, or finding where she's at. And episode 8 is when the whole group finds the cops and they battle, and then apparently Beth dies from what we've gathered, but it's not been confirmed yet. It's likely, but not confirmed. But based on the spoilers about Bob we got months back, looking pretty bad for Beth in terms of survival. So that's basically how the outline of the first 8 episodes are going to go. Episode 9 is Shire Will Estates, which Greg Nicotero did say he thinks is their strongest episode yet, or best episode yet, which that is definitely a bold statement considering they said that the premiere was their best episode yet, and personally I agree with them. They did not understate that whatsoever. It was a great episode, fantastic, well acted, written, directed, paced, everything. So the fact that they're saying episode 9 is even better, alright. I'll cut AMC. I'll cut you guys some slack because you did deliver with the premiere, so it's definitely possible you can deliver again. So I'm psyched for that. This episode, like I said, the dialogue is great. I love the dialogue between the characters. Surprisingly, Carl was not annoying in this episode, so that's a plus. He had some good dialogue. I thought Carl. You either love him or you hate him. I think most people hate him because he's just an annoying teenager, but you're not really supposed to like Carl too much or you weren't supposed to. I think now, from like when Rick and Carl made up at the end of episode 409 to like now, you're supposed to start to like Carl a little more. He's getting older, he's maturing, he's listening to his dad now, which makes him more likable. So that's good. And he had some good points in this episode. Speaking of Carl, Rick's speech to Carl I thought it was very, very powerful. Is that the right way? Yeah, I guess it was pretty powerful. Definitely deep, and it was to the point. It's probably the most truthful / direct that Rick has been to any particular character throughout the series. No, he was pretty direct to Shane at some points, but Rick was just, to his son, he was just really direct, and he had no chill. Okay, he had chill, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. He was cold and hard. He's like, you're not safe. It just takes a second and it's all over. Like, he's not sugarcoating it at all. He's telling it how it is, and how it is awful. It's brutal and rough, and the reality is that he could die at any moment. So the fact that Carl, accepts that is a sign of maturity. He's not like, I'm unstoppable. He's not acting like a typical teenager. Yeah, we're on top of the world. I'm not going to die. He acknowledges what his father says, and that's good. So that's a plus for Carl. I have no gripes about this episode. A lot of people are very confused, and I'll try to explain this for you guys. A lot of people are like, the first whole 40 minutes of the episode, maybe 35, and the episode's only like 42 exactly. The first 35 minutes of the episode, all the characters are definitely very militant, and they have their plans and stuff, and they're very safe and calculating. They all learn from their experiences, and they're not making any amateur mistakes. And everyone's like, after all of that, why is Bob wandering by the woods by himself, and why is Carol by herself? And the reasoning is, Bob, in my opinion at least, he knew he was bit. That's why he was crying. He was probably going to go out. He had his gun behind him. They do show him with his gun. He was probably going to go and kill himself. He probably didn't want to have to suffer. He probably didn't want to have Sasha see him suffer. So he was just going to go have a moment by himself and then probably just end it. Which is understandable. I mean, he didn't want anyone else to. He didn't want to hurt anyone else by him turning or something like that, which is understandable. So that explains Bob. Carol's reasoning. Now, if you notice when they're all celebrating inside and she kind of seems out of place, or she's acting like she's not really comfortable there, and she's looking at the door, she's thinking one of two things, if not both. She's thinking, one, why is no one guarding the door? She's probably like, someone has to go outside guarding. So it's either because of that, or she's feeling because she feels like she doesn't belong there. She feels that she's being judged by a lot of them, which I think for the most part they've accepted what she did. Maybe not accepted it, but they're tolerant of it at this point, because they need her. She saved them, and she deserves their forgiveness, at least for the most part. So they feel kind of bad about that. Rick feels bad about banishing her. I mean, that was pretty apparent in this episode. He asked her for her forgiveness, which is something Rick doesn't normally do. He seems like, yeah, well, I made my decision, deal with it. So that was cool. But yeah, Carol she didn't feel like she belonged there, so she needed some time to herself. And the way I see it, she has earned as a character, and us viewers, I feel like in our eyes, she's definitely earned the right. If she wants to go off by herself, she can. She can survive, and we've seen that. And obviously, in terms of writing and stuff, it's kind of a plot device, so she can be out there with Daryl. when the car drives by. But yeah, that's a cool teaser of Beth, and is definitely pretty awesome. Now, the ending scene of this episode is probably one of the best scenes they've ever had on the show, just in terms of how well it was put together. I thought it was handled very well. How it was shot, blurring out first person stuff, and that was pretty cool. Director David Boyd, I believe, he did a very good job with that. Whoever the cinematographer was, very good job on his part or her part, and Lawrence Gilliard Jr. who plays Bob. It's kind of weird because I met him at Walker StalkerCon in Boston, and at the time I'd met him, he'd already been killed off. I feel bad for Bob. That's a little tidbit. I feel bad for Bob. Bob is such a nice guy. You either don't like Bob because he hasn't really done enough to impress you, or you do like Bob because he's a nice guy. Personally, I like Bob, mainly because he gave me a shout out on YouTube. But besides that, he's a cool character, I think. Yeah, he hasn't done a whole lot, but he's likable. He has a very real struggle, the whole struggle with alcohol and drinking. On top of that, he's trying to find love in the apocalypse, similar to Glenn, and it worked for him for that brief stretch of time there. And he's just such a hopeful guy, such a happy guy despite everything. And then he gets bit, and then he has to cry by himself in the woods. It's very sad. And then just to get his leg eaten, he's just had a rough time. And I felt Andrew J. West, who plays Gareth, he did a great job in the scene where he's talking to Bob. I didn't think that Gareth or Andrew J. West could pull off the villain look, but after that scene in this episode, you can definitely, I think there's probably not a doubt in any of our minds. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I'm speaking for myself as well as my family, that Gareth is definitely a piece of crap after this episode. He's definitely a villain. I think he definitely pulls it off. I mean, he's obviously not as in terms of appearance, not as threatening as like a Governor or a Negan for that matter, but he definitely can pull off the psycho cannibal hunter. He's doing what he's supposed to do in the role. He's filling Gareth out perfectly. I think I couldn't imagine anyone else playing Gareth. I haven't given it much thought, but still. So yeah, this episode is definitely a 5 out of 5 in my opinion. Definitely slower, much slower than the premiere. But it had some cool zombie moments, especially a scene with the water walkers. That was a pretty cool scene. They're definitely setting up this season. It's being set up to be the best season yet. Episode 1, extremely awesome, very solid. Episode 2, very solid. Episode 3 looks like it's going to be even more solid. As a fan, it's probably one of the best times to be a fan of The Walking Dead right now because it's at the peak of its popularity. Well, I don't think it's even peaked yet, but the popularity is just going boom, boom, boom. And the episodes are great right now. Gimple's doing a fantastic job. The writing's great, and I feel the shows, they're doing more for us fans than they ever have before. Like, you notice they did a few teasers and promos last year, but they're giving us even more fan service this year. I think they're staying closer to the comics for one. We're getting more. We got tons more promos, although some of them were kind of pointless. They didn't really show anything. Tons more promos we got last year. Enough to hold us out over the few months. The Comic-Con trailer was awesome, and AMC's been doing a good job this season, so I applaud to them, and I applaud to the writers. Robert Kirkman, who wrote this episode, great job, Robert. Obviously, you're definitely the man. We all love your comics, or I think anyone who's a fan of The Walking Dead is probably a fan of the comics. I mean, it's just how it works, right? But, yeah, this has been the ZeusTuber, guys. Remember to rate, comment, dance, subscribe, and I will see you guys later with another video. I'll be back at you guys later specifically with any pictures that are released for next week's episode. I know there's one for sure of Abraham. I want to try to get 1 or 2 others for next week before I do a video, because I'm not going to just upload it and have one picture and be like, alright, bye. But yeah, I'll have that. Predictions later on in the week. Promo. I'll do a promo breakdown of the official promo as well as the New Zealand promo sometime during the week, hopefully tonight, but you never know. My schedule's wonky. But yeah, I'll try to get at least one video up per day. So yeah, you'll have plenty to look forward to, and I am psyched for the rest of the season, guys. I'll see you guys later, and have yourselves a nice day.